Charlie basically shared 24 tendencies which cause us to choose incorrectly, and we covered 12 of those tendencies in the part 1 video, and now we are going to cover the remaining tendencies. So we'll go through them one by one. So the first one for this video, which is the 13th one, is deprival super reaction. So in deprival super reaction, what happens is our reaction becomes very extreme when there is a perception that we are about to lose something which we have, or there is a perception that we are about to lose something which we almost got, which we thought we almost got. So when we are about to lose that, then our reaction becomes very extreme, unreasonable, and it could be related to money, losing money, or perception of losing money which we almost got. It could be related to property, it could be related to reputation, it could be related to territory. For example, when we are driving and someone tries to overtake from the wrong side, our reaction becomes very extreme. We become really angry, and we tend to almost risk accident to prevent that person from getting in front of us. And this is a very extreme reaction because we don't own the road, and the risk of accident is very high, and we will not lose anything if we let that other person come in front of us. But it's an automatic reaction and it's an extreme reaction. So that's why it is called deprival super reaction. So our reaction is extreme, and mostly it is animosity, and it gets reciprocated. So the situation could be different. We took the example of road, but any other situation, for example, in case of inheritance related issue in a family, right? So if one brother, one sibling thinks that, I'm getting unequal share, my share is being kind of taken away, then our reaction becomes extreme. It will be more like a animosity, and then it will be reciprocated by the other party, and then we will also reciprocate that animosity, and finally it comes to a broken relationship and a broken talk. So in such situation, because of our extreme reaction, we end up choosing something which is not in our best interest. So a lot of court cases related to family problems and inheritance related issue, they keep on lingering, which is not good for any person involved. Now, another form, which is more extreme form of deprival superreaction, is misgambling compulsion. So misgambling compulsion is very, very powerful, and this is what which ruins people in gambling and trading, where we almost lose our control. But before we can understand misgambling compulsion, we need to understand two phenomena, which is first is called operant conditioning, and second is called intermittent reinforcement. So let's understand these two terms, and then we will see what misgambling compulsion is. So in operant conditioning, what happens? You behave in a particular way, and every time you behave that way, you are given a reward. So what this does is, it makes that behavior a habit, because we are rewarded for that, so we keep on repeating that behavior. So this is called operant conditioning. Next is intermittent reinforcement. So in this, what happens is, you behave in a particular way, but sometimes you get the reward for behaving that way, and other times you don't get the reward. So rewards are given in a totally unpredictable, random way. Sometimes you will get the reward, sometimes you will not get the reward. So what happens is, this makes you hooked on to keep on repeating that behavior, because you don't know when you will get the reward, right? So you get hooked and keep on repeating that behavior to receive that reward. And this behavior is lot more powerful because there is a compulsion attached to it. So it is much deeper, much stronger behavior compared to operant conditioning. So this is what is intermittent reinforcement, where the rewards are unpredictable. They are given in a random, unpredictable way. So now let's understand what is misgambling compulsion. So in misgambling compulsion, the first thing is, reward is made intermittent. Okay. And second thing is, but when you don't get the reward, you actually get punishment. Okay. So you are looking for reward, and when you are not getting reward, you are being punished. So loss aversion, deprival super reaction gets kicked in. So you want something, but another force gets added, which is deprival part of it. So this creates stronger compulsion. Okay. And if you see, trading trading in share market has both these elements. First, the reward is intermittent. Not all your trade works, right? So sometime trade will work, and other time trade will not work. And when trade will not work, it will go in opposite direction and you have to book loss. So there is reward also and there is a loss also. So because of this, what happens is, it becomes like a compulsion, and it generates a passion to recover your loss. Okay. And it 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 results into over trading. You almost lose your senses and keep on trading just to recover your loss. Now, if we add a third component, the first is, reward is intermittent. The second is, when you're not getting reward, you are actually getting some kind of punishment. And now you add the third component, that you are almost just missing the reward part of it. And because you just missed it, you are receiving a punishment. So when these three combinations come together, then you almost, lose your senses. Your primal brain gets triggered, and it generates a very, very stronger compulsion. And if you see the intraday option trading, where you trade for 5-minute chart, all three are present. One is, reward is intermittent, so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. When it doesn't work, you have to book loss, you have to take stop loss, right? And most of the time, what will happen is, a new candle will come and you will feel as if you should have waited and you would not have incurred this particular loss, or you would have entered just few minutes back before and you would have made a loss, and you would have made a profit. So this results in very, very strong compulsion. Okay, it generates a passion to get even, to recover your loss, and that passion grows with the loss, and before you realize, you have lost all your capital. So that is why misgambling compulsion is very, very strong. Let's move on to the next one, which is availability misweighing. So availability misweighing is, by its name, whatever is available, we are putting more weight to it, and whatever is not available, we are kind of putting less weight to it. So the first example is when we are dealing with a situation where there is uncertainty, there is a randomness, there is no causal effect to what is going to happen. At that time, we should actually use probability. But calculating probability, calculating odd, is almost unnatural to brain. It is very exhausting and it takes a lot of effort. That is why what we tend to do is, instead of calculating probability by considering all options, we tend to use crude heuristics, right? We use thumb rules to decide, and we kind of jump to the conclusion. Basically, we are not taking into account all permutation combinations, whatever are possible. So this is the first example. The second example is, there are places where we don't need to use probability to choose something. Okay, we just have to choose what is best for us, but we end up choosing what comes to mind first. For example, when we are feeling thirsty, if Coca-Cola comes to our mind, we buy Coca-Cola. We don't look into whether other options are possible. Maybe juice would be a better choice, right? So this is the second example of availability misweighing. The third example is, there are times when we should consider many factors before finally arriving at conclusion, before finally deciding what to choose. But before considering all important factors, we jump to decision based on only few factors. For example, when we are conducting interview, within first few minutes, we tend to almost decide whether we are going to take this person or not. We tend to like that person, and then we tend to ask those kind of questions, so that we end up choosing that person instead of considering all requirement of that particular job and assessing the candidate for all those aspects. The second example is in share market trading. So in share market trading, you have to follow your setup, and your setup can, basically it includes many criterias. But what we tend to do is, we look at the chart and we suddenly jump to the conclusion that it looks like an opportunity and we have to enter. Then we enter the trade and then realize that probably we didn't assess correctly 3-4 other factors which we should have done. So antidote to this particular problem is, we should use defined procedures and checklists. Another specific case of availability misweighing is extra vivid condition. So in extra vivid, what happens is, when there is a recent extra vivid impression in our mind, then we forget to collect all other important and relevant information for making decisions. For example, after 9/11 um, plane crash on World Trade Center, no one wanted to use flight to travel because everyone, everywhere in the news, that picture of plane crashing into World Trade Center was flashing. So that was there in the memory, and we thought traveling by flight is very, very risky. So people didn't want to take any chance, and airlines were almost getting bankrupt um, after that event. So now let's go to the next one, which is bias from liking distortion. So we as a human being, we are born to like and love, and we tend to like certain people. Okay, and what happens is people whom we like, we tend to ignore their faults. We comply to their wishes, even if it is unreasonable wish, and we like and prefer what they like. So anything they like, we kind of say it's good, and we distort other facts to facilitate love. So basically, if you love someone, then you become biased and you distort the facts so that you can continue to like that person or love that person. And this could result into misjudgment. Next one is disliking distortion. So the way we tend to like certain people, we also tend to dislike and hate some people. And when we don't like someone or we hate some people, then we ignore anything good about them. We don't learn from them properly. We will say we will not even listen to that person. We ignore their virtues. We dislike and avoid whatever they like. And we distort other facts to facilitate hatred. Basically, we want to continue disliking them. And this could also result into misjudgment related to people. Next is doubt avoidance. So basically we don't like uncertainty. Okay. So we quickly remove doubt by jumping to conclusion. And this results into poor assessment of odds. Uncertainty requires calculation of odds. We don't like that. We prefer jumping to conclusions. And this particular tendency is very prominent when there is some kind of puzzlement and stress. So when there is a puzzlement and stress, then we quickly tend to jump to conclusion. Next one is curiosity tendency. This we are not covering. It was included by Charlie in the list, but I don't have anything to add here. So we will move on to the next one, which is reason respecting. The reason respecting has three cases for it. The first one is we learn well from others when we are interacting with someone else. We learn well from them when they explain to us the reason or why part of what they are saying. So this tendency is so strong. Whenever someone explains the reason, we tend to comply. So this tendency is so strong that people can manipulate you. Even when a person is giving you meaningless or incorrect reason, we simply accept their order or request. And the other part is when we are learning ourselves in general in life, where there is no other person is involved, when we are trying to understand worldly phenomena, then learning is most easily assimilated and used when we consistently relate our experience with the models of the world in our head. So we need to have models in our head about about how the world works. And then whatever we are noticing in the world, whatever we are experiencing in the world, that experience we have to relate it to the model by using models as a checklist. Because models are basically fundamentally explaining why something happens in the world, right? So that is another important part about how we should go about, you know, implementing our own learning process. Next one is use it or lose it tendency. So all skills attenuate with disuse. So if you want to retain a particular skill, we have to use it, we have to practice it, and we have to learn it to its fluency. We can't learn it halfway through, otherwise it doesn't register in our mind for long term. So we have to learn it to fluency, and then we have to use it regularly with the help of a checklist. And daily practice is needed. This is especially true for mental skills we use to assess the world correctly. So Charlie Munger talks about having roughly around 100 mental models in the world, which together explain most of the world, what is happening in the world, right? So we need to use those models as a checklist and learn it to fluency and keep using them on a daily basis. Next one is twaddle. So twaddle is a tendency where the person does not know the subject but still keeps talking about it. Okay, there are many people who keep talking about something which they don't understand correctly. And what they are saying is actually noise. It is not important. It is not pointing to fundamental root causes. So, use of knowing this tendency is that it is very important to keep such people away from serious work. So, in an organization where some serious work is going on, where some important consequential work is being developed, it is important to keep such people away from such serious work. Those people might be uh, very valuable in other areas, but for serious work, we should keep such people away. Next is stress influenced mental changes. So extreme stress, it can result into change in personality, and the change could be small or large, or it could be temporary or permanent. So this is so sometimes we meet people after a long time, and we can't recognize them, we can't relate to them, they have changed so much. And most of the time the reason could be they might have gone through some extreme stress and the personality has changed. Next is chemical dependency, which is basically addiction. So addiction we all know, but how it is sustained is mainly through denial. So people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol, they think they are in a respectable condition. They have not accepted that they are addicted to the stuff. and gradually they go into deeper and deeper deterioration of the condition. They become more and more addicted, and they also start losing their willpower, and many times moral failure will also happen at the time of dependency or addiction, and this becomes kind of a loop, and it kind of sustain that addiction part of it. The next one is senescence misinfluence tendency, which is basically old age. So as we grow old, we will not be able to learn new skills, and also we will start losing skills which we have learned earlier. Age will have that effect on us. But suggestion here is that if we want to retain the skill till very last stage of our life, then we should learn useful skills to its full fluency when we are young, and we have to keep practicing it. And if we have learnt it to full fluency, and if we keep practicing every day, then we can remain pretty good in maintaining that particular skill in old age. This this is mainly for skill related to mind, mindset and mental skills basically. Like Charlie talks about 100 mental models and understanding the world correctly. Obviously, physical condition will not allow you to retain physical skill for long. So now we come to the last part, which is not a tendency, which is lollapalooza. It is more like a effect, extreme effect. Okay, so lollapalooza is when several of these tendencies, the 24 tendencies which we discussed so far, when several of these tendencies they are operating in the same direction at the same time, then it can create some extreme phenomena in the world. Some extreme result will be there, and that is what is called lollapalooza. And it could either be very beneficial or it could be very damaging also. So let's. It could be because of life situation where no one else is manipulating you. Life situation itself could cause multiple of these tendencies to work in the same direction at the same time. That is one possibility. Or some people can use multiple tendencies together to manipulate you. So let's take some examples here. So corrupt culture in an organization. So corruption basically itself is an incentive, it's a temptation, right? For example, taking bribe, you receive money you don't deserve, so that corruption itself starts with a incentive. So incentive is there, and then in an organization there is social proof because everyone is doing it, and then you have consistency and commitment because once you start taking bribe or doing something, you want to remain consistent there. Then contrast misreaction would be there because if you are gradually, incrementally uh, advancing in the corruption, you will not realize it that how bigger it is becoming now. And then there would be authority, there will be a boss who would be putting pressure to meet the target, and then you will have excessive self regard working that I am special, nothing will happen to me, no one will catch it, I'm immune to the consequences. Then anytime doubt would be there, you will avoid the doubt. And lastly, liking and loving tendency, normally what it does is we tend to hire people who are of similar mindset, similar thinking. So you will find that in a corrupt organization or otherwise also, there would be people who are of similar thinking, similar uh, liking, and so on. So because you have other people also thinking and liking like you, there is no conflict which is happening. No one is kind of questioning it. So because so many tendencies starts working once you let a corrupt culture, start, it becomes kind of self-sustaining, and it becomes very difficult to become free of this corrupt culture because incentive will take its root, and when you try to change that, it will generate deprival super reaction from people. So you will face strong opposition from all the people who have vested interest in sustaining that particular culture. So next tendency is man with a hammer. So to a man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So this happens very frequently. So here what happens is we want to assert ourselves, excessive self-regard, right? We want to prove ourselves through our particular knowledge, skill, or competency, especially if it is part of our projected identity or reputation that I am great at this. Okay, and we apply it to even those problems or situations where they are not really applicable. And because of that, what happens is we claim to know what is going on, and we claim to understand how and why something is happening, which may or may not be related to our particular knowledge or skill. And our solution doesn't work, our prediction fails. Why? Because there was no fitment to our knowledge or skill with that particular situation where we were trying to apply it. So basically, we were twisting the reality to match it with our knowledge, which doesn't work, right? You can't twist the reality. So this is very common. If you are an economist, you view every problem from the point of economy. If you are a psychologist, you tend to apply psychology everywhere, right? So what creates man with a hammer tendency, right? It's more like a effect, but if you drill it down, you will see there is an incentive to protect your reputation, to assert your identity. Then you have excessive self-regard because you have invested so much of time, effort of your life into gaining that particular knowledge or skill. And then consistency and commitment. Throughout your life, you have done only that. So that is the first thing which comes into your mind when you have to assess any situation. So availability means weighing. That's the only thing which comes to my mind. What I know, and I apply that. And finally, there is a over optimism, right? So you have so many forces which are working and creating a tendency like this. A last example would be slot machines in casino. So we all, when we go to the casino in slot machine, we go with a bag of coin, and finally when we come out of it, most of the time we would have kind of lost all our coins. So what happens there? There is an incentive of easy money, right? Second is excessive self-regard. I can win, even though we know that odds are against us. Then you have deprival super reaction. You start losing your money, and then you become desperate to recover it. And then miss gambling compulsion starts kicking in, because when you are not winning, you are losing money, and also there would be just about missing cases in the slot machine. And all of that together, what happens is we get up and leave the slot machine only when we have lost our quota of all the coins which we had collected to play that slot machine. So that's all. We have covered all 24 tendencies as well as lollapalooza. But what is important is just knowing or understanding these tendencies is not going to be of much use. Like what is recommended here is we have to use all these 10 tendencies as a checklist, and we have to remember that. And whenever we are assessing any life situation, then we have to run through these checklists and identify all the forces which might be working against you. Then only it will be of much use in terms of making better choices and decisions in life. So thank you for watching this video. Have a nice day.